The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. Neither had Daniel Ashford's thoughts. He stood outside a small brick duplex in a neighborhood he didn't belong to, wearing a jacket 2 sizes too big and boots that had never touched real dirt until that morning. In one pocket was $70, the only cash he was allowed to carry. In the other was a folded photograph of a little girl who wasn't really his daughter. In 4 hours, she would believe she was. Somewhere behind that door was Claire Bennett. She had no idea the man about to enter her life was worth $11 billion. She had no idea every word he was about to hear himself say, his name, his job, his past, was a carefully constructed lie. All of it to answer one question that had haunted him for 6 years. Could anyone ever love him for who he was, instead of what he owned? He knocked. The door opened. Something in his chest went cold. Before we go further into what happened in that doorway, and trust me, what happened over the next several weeks will completely change how you see everything that comes after. If you're the kind of person who believes love should have nothing to do with money, hit subscribe right now, drop a like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. Because this story is about to test everything you think you know about what people will do for the truth. 6 years earlier, Daniel Ashford had been a different man. He had inherited Ashford Continental at 29, a logistics and shipping empire his grandfather built from a single tugboat, and by 35 he had tripled its value. He was, by every external measure, a success. He was also, by his own private admission, someone nobody actually knew. There had been women, many of them. All of them had known his name before they knew his face. All of them had done the math before they'd ever done the falling. He did not blame them entirely. The world had taught them to. But somewhere in the 3rd year of a relationship that ended the week his company's stock split, Daniel had made a decision that his lawyer called reckless, his mother called childish, and his therapist called, quietly, the healthiest thing he had done in a decade. He was going to disappear. Not literally. He would still run his company from a distance, through people who did not know why he needed 6 weeks of near-total anonymity. But for those 6 weeks he would become someone else. A man named Danny Cole, recently laid off from a warehouse job, temporarily helping care for his niece while his sister recovered from surgery in another state. A man with no money, no name recognition, and this detail mattered more than any other, a child in his life who was not really his, but who he had to protect anyway. Because Daniel Ashford did not just want to know if a woman could love a poor man. He wanted to know if she could love a man who came with someone else's responsibility. A man who was already, in some sense, taken, not by romance, but by duty. He wanted to see what a woman did when loving him meant loving an inconvenience. The girl was real. Her name was Emma. She was 7 years old, and she was the daughter of Daniel's actual housekeeper, a woman named Priya, who had agreed to the arrangement for a sum of money that would put both her children through college, on the condition that Emma never know the truth until she was old enough to understand it. Emma believed she was staying with her Uncle Danny for the summer. She did not know that Uncle Danny was a stranger to her, hired into her life the same way he had hired everyone else who would play a part in the next 6 weeks. It was, by any reasonable moral accounting, a complicated thing to have done to a child. Daniel told himself it was harmless. He told himself Emma would remember a fun summer and nothing more. He did not yet know that Emma was far more perceptive than a 7-year-old was supposed to be, and that she would become the one person in this story who saw the truth before anyone else did. Claire Bennett ran a modest daycare out of the bottom floor of her duplex, 6 kids on scholarship and 4 paying full price, barely breaking even most months. She was 34, divorced 2 years, and had learned the hard way that men who said they wanted something real usually wanted something easy instead. Her ex-husband had left when things got difficult, and difficult in Claire's life was simply the baseline. Sarah, the sister who had supposedly arranged for Emma's care, was in reality one of Daniel's assistants, operating under a cover story tight enough to survive casual scrutiny, but not, as it would turn out, Claire's instincts. "She's shy at first," Claire said that first evening, crouching to Emma's height. "But she warms up fast once she trusts you. Kids always know who's being real with them. Daniel felt that sentence land somewhere it wasn't supposed to. "I'll keep that in mind," he said. Over the following days, something began happening that Daniel had not planned for. He had expected to observe Claire. He had expected to test her. What he had not expected was to start looking forward to the sound of her voice through the thin wall between the daycare and the small apartment he was renting nearby. An apartment far smaller than any bathroom in his penthouse, furnished with things that had been someone else's first before they were his. Claire, for her part, found herself unsettled by Danny Cole in ways she couldn't name. He said the right things at the wrong times, hesitated before answering simple questions like they required more thought than they should. And once, when Emma fell off a bike and started crying, Daniel's first instinct wasn't panic. It was calm, competent authority, the kind that came from a man used to solving problems, not scraping by beneath them. "You don't seem like someone who's been out of work long," Claire said one evening, watching him fix a cabinet hinge with tools that weren't his. "Why do you say that? Guys who've been broke a while, they either stop trying or they get desperate. You're neither. You're just careful." She studied him, like you're used to things going right, and you're not sure how to act when they don't. Daniel felt his pulse tighten. "Maybe I just don't like admitting when things are hard. That's not the same thing," Claire said, quieter now. But okay. She let it go. She would not let it go for long. If you've ever had someone see straight through the story you were telling yourself, you know exactly the discomfort Daniel was feeling in that moment, and it's only going to get more complicated from here. If this is pulling you in, drop a comment and let me know your honest reaction so far, and if you haven't already, go ahead and like this video. It helps more than you'd think, and we've got a long way still to go. The weeks that followed built something neither of them had agreed to build. Claire began saving the last cup of coffee for Danny without thinking about it. Danny began arriving early, not because Emma needed him there, but because he wanted the 20 extra minutes of Claire complaining about invoices and laughing at her own bad jokes. Emma, watching both of them with the merciless clarity of a child who has nothing else to do but observe, began asking questions neither adult wanted to answer. "Are you going to marry Miss Claire?" she asked one night, apropos of nothing, while Daniel tucked a blanket around her on the couch. Where did that come from? You look at her the way Daddy used to look at Mummy, before Daddy left. Daniel did not have an answer for that. He had built an $11 billion company. He had negotiated deals that reshaped entire supply chains across 3 continents. And a 7-year-old girl, who was not even his, had just said something that made his throat close entirely. "Go to sleep, Em," he managed. But Emma was not finished being observant. 2 nights later, while Daniel was on a call he thought she couldn't hear, a call with his actual chief financial officer discussing an acquisition worth more than the entire neighborhood they were standing in, Emma stood in the hallway with her small hand pressed against the door, listening to numbers she did not understand but knew instinctively did not belong to a man without a job. She did not tell Claire, not yet. But something had shifted in the girl's small, careful mind, and it would not shift back. The emotional center of this story arrives on a Tuesday, 3.5 weeks in, on a night neither Daniel nor Claire had planned for. Claire's daycare had lost its lease. The building's owner, an investor group Claire had never met, had decided the property was worth more as condos than as a place where working parents could afford to leave their children. She got the letter on a Tuesday afternoon and did not cry in front of anyone until that night, after Emma was asleep, when she sat on her back porch steps in the rain and let it happen because there was, for once, no one around to be strong for. Except there was. Daniel found her there. "I don't need saving," she said before he could speak, wiping her face with the back of her wrist. "I don't need you to fix this. I just need it to not be true." "I know," Daniel said, sitting beside her anyway, close enough that their shoulders touched, careful not to close the distance further than she wanted. "I'm not trying to fix it. I just didn't want you sitting out here alone. Everyone leaves when things get hard, Danny. My husband left. My business is about to leave. Eventually you'll leave too. because that's what happens, and I've made my peace with it. So please don't sit here and pretend that you won't." "I'm not going anywhere," Daniel said, and for the first time since this began, the words did not feel like a performance. They felt like a promise he had no idea yet how he was going to keep, because keeping it meant a truth would eventually have to come out, and he did not know what would survive that truth. "You don't know that," Claire whispered. "You don't know anything about staying. Neither do I, if I'm honest. I just know what it costs when someone doesn't." "Then let me learn," Daniel said. "Let me be the one who stays and finds out what it costs to keep that promise instead." Claire looked at him for a long moment, rain running down both their faces, and something passed between them that was not a decision so much as a surrender. The quiet, terrified kind that happens when two guarded people stop guarding, just for one night, just long enough to let something reel in. She kissed him first. He would remember that detail for the rest of his life, that in the one moment that mattered most, she was the one who chose to leap. If this story has you feeling something right now, I want you to sit with it for a second, and then let me know in the comments. Has there ever been a moment in your life where someone chose to stay when everyone else would have left? Hit like if this story is hitting you the way I think it is, because what happens next is going to test that choice in ways neither of them saw coming. The unraveling began, as these things often do, with a phone call that was never supposed to reach the wrong ears. Priya, Emma's actual mother, called Daniel's real cell phone, the one he wasn't supposed to have on him, while Daniel was in the shower and Claire was in the kitchen making breakfast. Emma answered it, the way children do when a phone rings and no adult is looking. "Hi, baby," Priya said, not recognizing that this was not the number she expected to be picking up on. "Is Mr. Ashford there? Tell him the transfer for this month cleared and thank him again for everything." Emma did not understand most of what her mother said, but she understood two things with total clarity. Her mother had called Danny Mr. Ashford, and her mother had talked about money like Danny owed her something, like Danny worked for something bigger than a warehouse. She did not say anything to Claire that morning, but that night, unable to hold it any longer, she asked the question that would detonate everything. "Miss Claire, is Danny's name really Danny?" Claire, halfway through folding laundry, laughed the question off at first. "Of course it is, sweetheart. Why would you ask that?" "Because Mommy called him Mr. Ashford on the phone, and she said thank you for the money." Claire's hands went still. She did not confront Daniel that night. She sat with it instead, turning it over, telling herself there was an explanation, telling herself she was building a conspiracy out of a 7-year-old's confusion. But the next morning, unable to stop herself, she did something she was not proud of. She searched the name Ashford, attached to the word billionaire, and watched her entire understanding of the last month collapse in the 4 seconds it took the search results to load. Daniel Ashford. Ashford Continental. Net worth estimated $11.2 billion. A photograph from a business magazine 2 years old of the same face that had been fixing her cabinet hinges and tucking her borrowed niece into bed and telling her, in the rain, that he was not going anywhere. She confronted him that evening, the photograph pulled up on her phone, her voice steadier than she felt. "Tell me this isn't you." Daniel looked at the screen. He did not lie. He could not anymore, not to her. "It's me. Say it. Say what you did." "I'm not who I said I was," Daniel said. "My name is Daniel Ashford. Emma isn't my niece. She's my housekeeper's daughter, and I paid her mother to let me bring her here so I could." He stopped, hearing how it sounded before he even finished the sentence. "So I could find out if someone could love me without knowing what I have." The silence that followed was the longest either of them had ever sat inside. "You used a child," Claire said very quietly, "as a prop, in an experiment, about your feelings. I know how it sounds." "You don't know how it sounds, Daniel. You know how it sounds to you. It sounds different from where I'm standing. I told that little girl she was safe here. I let her believe in something. And the whole time, her presence in my home was a transaction between two adults who never once thought to ask her what she wanted." "Claire, "Get out," she said. "Take her home to her actual mother and don't come back here." If you think this is the twist, stay with me, because it isn't. What's actually happening beneath the surface of this confrontation is bigger than either of them realizes yet, and it's about to come out in the worst possible way. Daniel left that night, and for 3 days, silence sat between them like a wall neither knew how to climb. He returned Emma to Priya, who was horrified to learn her daughter had figured out more than anyone intended, and Daniel finally understood, in the quiet of his actual penthouse for the first time in weeks, the full weight of what he had built and what he had broken to test it. But the twist, the one that would change everything Claire believed about those 6 weeks, came from a place none of them expected. Priya, terrified that she would be blamed and lose the money she had already spent on her son's tuition, called Claire directly. Not to apologize on Daniel's behalf, but to explain something Daniel himself did not fully understand yet. "You need to know something," Priya said. "Emma wasn't the only lie in that house. Daniel wasn't testing you the way you think." "What are you talking about?" "He didn't come to your daycare by accident. Sarah, his assistant, she picked 6 different women in 3 different cities for this. Single, financially struggling, running small businesses. He was going to run the same experiment with all of them, one at a time over the next year. Yours wasn't supposed to be the only one." The air went out of the room. Claire had believed in her most private and humiliated place that whatever had happened between them, real or fabricated, had at least been singular. That she had been chosen, not sampled. "Was," Priya said, catching herself. "Was supposed to be. He cancelled the other 5 appointments 2 weeks ago. Before any of this came out. Before he even knew you'd found out the truth." Claire sat down slowly. "Why would he cancel them?" "Because he told Sarah he didn't need to run the experiment anymore. He said he already had his answer. This is the moment everything looks different in hindsight. Remember every strange hesitation, every unexplained competence, every moment Daniel seemed torn between 2 lives? That tension was real, and it had been leading here the entire time. If this story has surprised you even once tonight, subscribe now, because there is one more turn left, and it's the one that decides whether Claire ever lets him back in. Claire did not call Daniel that night, or the next. She needed time to separate the lie from the man, to determine whether they were the same thing, or whether, underneath 6 weeks of deception, something true had genuinely happened to both of them. It was Emma, in the end, who forced the final confrontation. Not through malice, but through the plain, devastating honesty of a child. She asked Priya to take her back to see Miss Claire, insisting she owed her an apology for helping Danny lie, even though no 7-year-old owes anyone that. Claire, unable to turn away a child standing on her porch in the rain, the same rain, it seemed, that had started this entire story, let her in. "I liked being here," Emma said, sitting on the same couch where Daniel had once tucked her in. "Even though it wasn't real. Is it bad that I still liked it?" "No, sweetheart," Claire said, throat tight. "It's not bad at all." "Danny's outside," Emma added. "He said he wouldn't come in unless you said it was okay. He's been standing there a long time." Claire looked through the window and saw him, Daniel Ashford, $11 billion, standing in the same rain in the same borrowed jacket, waiting for permission he had no right to expect. She opened the door. "I'm not here to convince you of anything," Daniel said before she could speak. "I know what I did. I know it was selfish and reckless, and it used people who never agreed to be used, especially her." He glanced at Emma. "I've already set up a trust for her education, separate from anything her mother agreed to. That part isn't a negotiation. That part I owed her regardless of what happens between us." "And what do you think happens between us?" Claire asked. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "I came here poor and I'm leaving rich, and somewhere in between, for the first time in my adult life, I stopped performing for anyone. Not because I was pretending to be someone else. Because you made it feel safe to stop pretending at all. I don't know how to prove that a version of me that told the truth is still someone worth trusting. I just know I'd like the chance to try." Claire was quiet for a long moment. "You don't get to skip the hard part," she finally said. If there's anything real here, we don't start with a mansion and a happy ending. We start with you showing up, actually showing up, as exactly who you are, for as long as it takes me to believe it. No disguises, no experiments, no shortcuts. I can do that, Daniel said. I'm not saying yes to anything tonight, Claire warned. I'm saying the door isn't closed. That's all you get right now. That's more than I deserve. Daniel said, I'll take it. Here is what nobody tells you about people who have everything. Money can buy almost every version of comfort except the one that matters most, which is the simple, unguarded belief that you are wanted for exactly who you are. Daniel Ashford spent 6 weeks lying to find that out, and it cost him nearly everything he had built with Claire before he ever had the chance to build it honestly. Claire spent those same 6 weeks discovering that the version of a man who fixes cabinet hinges and holds a crying woman in the rain and stays even when staying is inconvenient, that version doesn't disappear just because his bank account was a lie. It just means the real relationship, the honest one, still had to be earned from the very beginning. It took the better part of a year. Daniel did not buy his way back into Claire's life. She wouldn't have allowed it even if he'd tried. He showed up, ordinary and unremarkable, week after week, in ways that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with consistency. He funded Emma's education quietly, without ceremony, without using it as leverage for forgiveness. He helped Claire relocate her daycare to a new building, not by writing a check in his own name, but by anonymously co-signing a community grant that any small business owner in her position could have applied for. Because he had learned, finally, the difference between rescuing someone and simply standing beside them while they rescued themselves. Before we get to the very last thing this story has to say, if you've made it this far, you already know this isn't really a story about billionaires or disguises. It's about what it costs to be truly known by another person. If that means something to you, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight, and tell me in the comments the biggest lesson you're taking from Daniel and Claire's story. They did not marry within the year, or even within 2. Some stories, the true ones, resist the neat bow of a fast ending, because the realest kind of love is not a single grand gesture, but 1,000 small acts of showing up, one Tuesday at a time, long after the drama has faded, and all that remains is the quiet, unglamorous work of choosing someone again and again without an audience watching. What Daniel Ashford learned in the end was not that money made love impossible. It was that love had never been about money at all. It had always been about whether a person was willing to be seen, fully and without armor, and stay standing there anyway. He had spent 6 weeks in disguise trying to answer a question that it turned out could only ever be answered by taking the disguise off completely. And somewhere in a small house that once almost lost its lease, a little girl who was never really his niece still remembers a summer where for 6 strange and complicated weeks she believed in a family that wasn't real, and somehow, against every reasonable expectation, helped build the one that eventually was.